The suit that traps me. Can you help? The strange suit clung to him like a second skin, its metallic surface shimmering under the dim light of the room. He tried to move, but it felt like the fabric was alive, responding to every twitch of his muscles. He could barely breathe, the tightness across his chest making each inhale feel like a battle. His mind raced, panic setting in as he realized something was terribly wrong. He tugged at the zipper, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if the suit had fused with his body, becoming a part of him. The more he struggled, the more it seemed to tighten. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as he cursed under his breath. He didn't know how he had ended up in this suit, but one thing was clear: he couldn't get out alone. His thoughts flickered to the one person who might be able to help. She was the only one he trusted, the only one who could save him from this suffocating nightmare. His voice, shaky and strained, broke the silence. "Can you hear me?" he called out, his words barely a whisper, but the desperation was clear. He waited, heart pounding in his chest, his eyes darting around the dark room. The suit didn't let him move freely, but he still tried to find a way to get closer to the door. Nothing. It felt like the suit was purposely locking him in place, keeping him trapped in its grip. He tried to speak again, this time louder, more forceful. "I need help. Please, I can't get out of this thing. You have to help me." He knew she would hear him. She always did. The sound of her footsteps echoed down the hall, drawing nearer with every second. The door creaked open, and there she was, her eyes wide with concern, her face pale with worry. "What happened?" she asked, rushing toward him, her voice full of panic. She reached out to touch his arm, but he flinched back instinctively, the suit restricting his movement. He didn't want her to see the desperation on his face. "It's the suit," he said, his voice hoarse. "I can't get it off. It's stuck to me, and I need you to help." Her eyes shifted from his face to the suit, her brows furrowing as she studied it. "How did this happen? How did you even get into this thing?" He shook his head, too afraid to explain in full. "I don't know. I was just trying to—" "Focus," she interrupted softly, her voice soothing, yet urgent. "Let's get you out of this." He glanced at her, grateful but terrified. He knew she couldn't see the whole truth, not yet. The suit, for all its futuristic technology, held secrets that could destroy everything if they weren't handled carefully. I need you to pull the zipper," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, his hands trembling. "It's the only way to get it off me, but please don't look, just touch." Her eyes widened, confusion flickering in them, but she nodded slowly. She could see the fear in his eyes, and it broke her heart. Without another word, she moved closer, reaching for the zipper. Her fingers brushed against the cold metal of the suit, and the moment her skin made contact, he shuddered involuntarily. It wasn't just the fear of being trapped, it was the fear of what might happen once the suit was undone. The air seemed to grow thick around them, heavy with the weight of the unknown. He closed his eyes, trying to steady his breathing, to calm himself, but the tightness in his chest didn't go away. The suit felt like it was squeezing the life out of him. She hesitated for a moment, but then, without warning, she tugged at the zipper. He winced, a sharp pain shooting through him as the suit resisted. It was as if the zipper itself had a life of its own, refusing to let go. She pulled harder, but it wouldn't move. His heart raced and panic flared up again. "It's not working," she said, her voice laced with frustration and fear. "This thing is... I don't understand." "You have to try harder," he gasped, his voice cracking. "You have to pull it all the way down." She nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. She tried again, pulling with all her strength. For a moment the zipper didn't move, and then with a sharp click it gave way. A small gap appeared, and he felt a rush of relief. Though the suit was still firmly attached to his body, he let out a shaky breath, his mind swirling with 1,000 questions. What was this suit? Who made it? Why was he wearing it? And why couldn't he remember how he got here? "It's coming off," she whispered, relief flooding her voice as the zipper finally moved down a little more. "We're getting there." But just as he thought he might be free, a strange humming sound filled the room, The suit pulsed with a faint glow, and for a moment, everything went still. He froze, his heart skipping a beat. Something was wrong. Something was about to change. His eyes locked with hers, and in that brief moment he realized they were no longer alone. The suit wasn't just trapping him. It was drawing attention. Unwanted attention. The risk of touch. What's behind the suit? The room was eerily silent except for the soft hum of the suit still vibrating against his skin. Each second felt like an eternity as he stood there, staring at her, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The small gap in the zipper wasn't enough to offer him freedom, yet it had given him just enough hope to make him think he could escape. But something was wrong. Something in the air had changed, the energy in the room growing heavy with an unspoken threat. He glanced at her, his heart racing. This isn't just a suit, is it? Her eyes flickered, a mixture of confusion and fear flashing in her gaze. She stood motionless, still gripping the zipper but now hesitating. It was as if she, too, could sense the shift in the room, something lurking just beyond their grasp. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, though she tried to hide it. He swallowed hard, trying to steady himself. "This suit, it's alive, isn't it? I can feel it. It's responding to me, to my thoughts. It's controlling me, keeping me trapped." Her hand fell from the zipper, her face paling. "What are you saying? How could it be alive?" "I don't know," he replied, his voice shaky. But he forced himself to speak the truth. "But I can feel it. I can feel its pulse inside me. When you touch it, it reacts. It's like it's aware of what's happening." The silence between them deepened, the air thick with the unspoken realization that whatever was happening, it was far beyond what either of them had anticipated. She took a step back, fear clouding her expression as she tried to process his words. Her eyes scanned the suit, now glowing faintly as though it were absorbing the very energy around them. This isn't just some accident," he murmured, his mind racing. "Whoever made this, they did it for a reason. And I think they're watching." Her eyes snapped to his. "Watching? What do you mean?" The words he spoke next were slow, deliberate, as though the truth was just beginning to settle on his shoulders. "I think someone's controlling this suit, maybe even controlling me. They know what we're doing. They might be listening to everything we say." A chill ran down her spine and she instinctively stepped closer to him, reaching out to touch the suit again. But just before her fingers made contact, a strange, buzzing noise filled the room, followed by a sharp, high-pitched hum. The sound made his skin crawl. He felt his heart skip a beat. The suit was reacting, the vibrations growing stronger, more intense. "Stop!" he cried out, yanking his body away from her touch. The fear in his voice was impossible to ignore. "Now, don't touch it again. I don't think it's safe anymore." She pulled her hand back, eyes wide with uncertainty. She didn't understand what was happening, but she could see the panic in his face, and it terrified her. "What should we do then? We have to get it off you." "I don't know," he replied, his voice tight with frustration. "But every time you touch it, it reacts. It gets stronger. Maybe it's because you're close to me, maybe because of something else, but it's not safe. It's only getting worse." The humming noise grew louder, more insistent. The suit was vibrating violently now, like it was trying to pull itself free from his body. The more it moved, the more his chest tightened, like something was trying to tear him apart from the inside. Suddenly the room darkened and the glow from the suit flickered in strange patterns. His vision blurred and a sharp pain shot through his head. It felt like 1,000 voices were whispering in his ears, each one speaking in an alien language he couldn't understand. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the floor, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Get up, stay with me," she shouted, her hands shaking as she reached for him. "You're scaring me. What's happening?" He gripped his head in agony, trying to block out the strange voices, but they only grew louder. It was as if the suit had connected him to something far beyond his understanding. He could hear commands, voices issuing orders in a language he didn't recognize. The suit wasn't just a trap. It was a weapon, a tool, an experiment. You don't understand, he gasped, struggling to speak. This suit, it's not just a suit, it's controlling me, it's controlling everything. Her eyes widened as she took a step back, a look of horror creeping onto her face. Controlling you? What do you mean? What are they doing to you? Before he could answer, the humming sound reached a deafening pitch. He clenched his fists in pain, his body jerking uncontrollably as if the suit were trying to pull him in all directions at once. And then, just as quickly as it had started, the noise stopped. Everything fell eerily silent again. He opened his eyes slowly, his body trembling. The suit had stopped moving. The room had returned to its normal state, but his fear only deepened. This was far from over. What was that? She whispered, her voice barely audible as she knelt beside him. He looked at her, his face pale. That was the suit communicating with something. Or someone. I don't know what they want, but I'm starting to think it's not just about getting me out of it anymore. They're watching us. A cold shiver ran through him as he realized the gravity of their situation. The suit wasn't just a trap, it was a key, and they had no idea what doors it might open. And whatever it was unlocking, they weren't ready for it. The room seemed to close in around them, the weight of the unknown pressing down harder than ever. The worst part? He didn't even know if they would survive long enough to find out. He looked at her, his eyes filled with dread. You need to get out of here now. But it was too late. The sound of footsteps echoed from outside the door. They weren't alone anymore. Someone, or something, had found them. A forbidden touch, breaking the rules. The silence in the room was thick, pressing down on them like an invisible weight. His chest still ached, the tightness of the suit constricting around him with every breath he took. He could still feel the lingering hum in his bones, the vibrations that had shot through him just moments before, leaving him shaken and weak. The dark room seemed to close in around him, the air heavy with an unsettling tension. She stood before him, eyes filled with worry, but also something else, determination. She had seen the terror in his eyes, the fear that gripped him, and now she knew they were in something far deeper than either of them had expected. The suit wasn't just a trap. It was a link to something much more dangerous. Something that had taken control of him and was watching them both. We can't just stand here and wait, she said, her voice low but firm. We need to figure this out. I can't let you suffer like this. He turned his head to look at her, his eyes filled with frustration and fear. You don't understand, he whispered, his voice barely audible. This thing, this suit, it's not just holding me captive. It's controlling everything. Every move, every thought. It's not just mine anymore. Her heart skipped a beat at his words, but she refused to let fear cloud her mind. We have to try again, she said, stepping closer. We have to break whatever hold it has on you. But as she reached for the zipper once more, a strange force seemed to fill the room, an almost invisible barrier keeping her from getting any closer. She could feel the air around them crackle with an unnatural energy, as if the very space between them had thickened. The closer she got to him, the more intense the sensation became. He saw her pause, her hand hovering over the zipper, and for the first time he saw the fear in her eyes mirror his own. Don't, he muttered, his voice full of desperation. You don't know what will happen if you touch it again. I can feel it. Something's changing. She froze, her fingers hovering just inches from the zipper. The unease in his voice made her hesitate, but something inside her pushed her forward. We can't stop now, she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. We have no choice. I'll be careful, I promise. He opened his mouth to protest, but the words died on his lips. He knew she was right. They didn't have time to waste. The suit wasn't just a part of him. It was a prison, and the longer it stayed, the more it would take from him. They had to act now. Slowly. She reached for the zipper again, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the cold, metallic surface. The moment her skin made contact, the room seemed to shift. A low, almost imperceptible growl echoed from The suit itself and his entire body stiffened like the suit was reacting to her touch. "Stop," he gasped, his eyes wide with panic. "It's reacting again. It's—" Before he could finish his sentence, the suit pulsed with a sudden force, sending a shockwave through the air. His body jerked violently and the suit seemed to tighten even more, as if trying to lock him in place. He let out a scream of pain, but the sound was muffled, swallowed by the oppressive force building around them. She stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest. The room spun, and she felt the pressure of the suit's energy pushing against her. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling with fear. "What's happening?" He gasped for breath, his vision blurred with pain. I don't know, it's like it's trying to defend itself. It knows what we're trying to do. It doesn't want to let me go." Just as the tension reached its peak, the suit's violent reaction suddenly stopped. Everything went silent. The oppressive weight that had filled the room lifted, leaving only the faint hum of the suit as it pulsed softly against his skin. He collapsed to his knees, breathing heavily, his body drenched in sweat. His hands trembled as he struggled to steady himself. She knelt beside him, her expression a mixture of fear and determination. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice softer now, as she gently placed a hand on his shoulder. He nodded slowly, though every muscle in his body felt like it had been stretched beyond its limits. I'm fine. But we need to stop. Every time you touch it, it's getting worse. I think we're provoking it. It's not just trying to protect itself. It's learning. And if we're not careful, it might control us." A chill ran down her spine as she processed his words. The suit wasn't just a physical prison. It was a sentient force, one that could adapt and change to their actions. And if they weren't careful, it could turn on them completely. She stood up, pacing, back and forth, her mind racing. "Then what do we do?" she asked, her voice full of uncertainty. "We can't just sit here and wait for it to take control of you. We need answers. We need to figure out how to stop it before it's too late." He looked up at her, his expression grim. "I don't know, but there has to be a way to stop it. We just need to find the source. Who made this suit? Why is it doing this?" A thought suddenly struck him, and his eyes widened. "Wait, I remember something. Back before all this happened, there was a project. Something about new technologies, about weapons that could control people. But I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just rumors." "What project?" she asked, leaning in closer, her curiosity piqued. He swallowed hard, his mind racing as fragments of the past began to resurface. "It was called the Transference Protocol. They were trying to merge technology with the human mind, but something went wrong. They never finished it. At least that's what they said." "But you think this suit is part of it?" she asked, her voice low. He nodded slowly. "I'm sure of it. This suit is a prototype, a failed experiment. And now it's alive. It's learned to adapt to its host." The realization hit them both like a thunderclap. They weren't just dealing with a piece of high-tech clothing. They were dealing with an experiment gone horribly wrong. A living, breathing weapon that had fused with his body and was learning how to control him. And the worst part? They didn't know who was behind it or why, but one thing was certain. They were running out of time. He turned to her, his face filled with determination. "We have to find out who's behind this, and we have to stop them before it's too late." But just as he spoke those words, the lights flickered, and the door to the room slammed shut with a deafening thud. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, and in that moment, they both realized the truth. They weren't alone anymore. Someone, or something, was coming for them, and there was no way to escape. The unexpected twist. The secret of the suit. The room felt suffocating as the door slammed shut, the sound echoing through the walls, leaving them in a momentary silence. He could feel the weight of it, the tension, the danger creeping ever closer. The suit pulsed against his body once more, sending a cold shiver through him. It was as if the very fabric of the suit was reacting to their peril, to the approaching threat. And with that realization, a horrible thought flickered in his mind. They weren't just trapped by the suit anymore. They were now being hunted. He could hear the faint scuffling of boots outside the door, the unmistakable sound of someone or something moving closer. His heart pounded in his chest, matching the rapid pulse of the suit. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, to break free of this nightmare, but it was too late. The suit had already tightened its grip, keeping him rooted in place. He turned to look at her, his eyes wide with fear. "They're here," he said, his voice low and urgent. "We need to get out. Now." She nodded quickly, but the fear in her eyes betrayed her calm exterior. "We can't just run. We don't know what we're dealing with. We need to find out what's inside this suit, what it's doing to you." He opened his mouth to argue, but the words died on his lips. She was right. Running wouldn't solve anything. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. But the clock was ticking, and whatever was coming for them wasn't going to wait. The scuffling outside grew louder, and then the unmistakable sound of a heavy boot thudding against the floor. The door began to vibrate as if someone was testing it, trying to force their way in. The hum from the suit pulsed again, this time more erratically, almost as if it sensed the danger and was trying to protect them, or worse, ready to betray them. "I need to know what's inside," he whispered, the words barely escaping his lips. "I need to know what's controlling this thing. It's not just technology, it's something else. Something I can't explain." She stepped forward, her hands trembling as she reached for the edges of the suit. Her fingers brushed against the cold metal, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. There was a shift in the air, a strange energy that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. The suit reacted again, almost as if it recognized her touch. She pulled back quickly, her breath hitching. It's like it's alive," she said, her voice trembling. "There's something inside it, something more than just technology." His body went rigid. He had known it for a while, but hearing her say it out loud made it all the more terrifying. The suit wasn't just trapping him. It was changing him, adapting him into something else. And whatever that something was, it had power. A power that neither of them fully understood yet. Suddenly, the suit glowed brightly, its internal mechanisms whirring and clicking as though it were coming to life. The soft hum filled the room again, growing louder, almost vibrating the walls. His body jerked involuntarily, his hands reaching out, gripping the sides of the suit as if it were trying to escape him. The pain was intense, and for a moment he thought he might collapse from the sheer force of it. "I can feel it," he gasped. "It's not just controlling my movements, it's trying to control my thoughts and my mind." She looked at him, her eyes wide with panic. "We need to get this off you now." He shook his head, tears welling in his eyes as he struggled against the suit. "No, don't. If you try to take it off now, it will kill me. It's holding me together. I can feel it, like it's feeding off me." Her breath caught in her throat. "Feeding off you?" He nodded weakly, his voice barely a whisper. "It's using my energy, my thoughts, everything I feel it feels, everything I think it hears, but I can't stop it." The weight of his words hung heavily in the air between them. This wasn't just an experiment gone wrong. This suit was something far more dangerous, a sentient being, a parasite, a tool of control, and he was its host. As the hum from the suit grew louder, a strange vision flashed through his mind. A memory, or was it a dream, of a dark, cold laboratory filled with flashing lights and harsh voices. He saw figures standing over him, their faces hidden in shadow, their voices low and indistinct. They were watching him, studying him, as he lay on a table, helpless. The images were fragmented, but they felt real, like a part of him had been stolen and replaced. He gasped as the memory faded, but the weight of it stayed with him. They did this to me," he said, his voice filled with horror. "They created this suit, they made me a part of it." Just then, the door shook violently, as if something or someone was trying to break through. The vibrations from the suit matched the pounding of the door, creating a syncopated rhythm that was almost hypnotic. He felt the pressure building inside him again, the strange buzzing sensation intensifying with every passing second. "We're running out of time," she said, her voice frantic. "They're going to break in any second. We need to figure out how to stop this." He stared at her, desperation in his eyes. "I don't know how, but I think there's a key inside the suit, something that controls everything. If we can find it, we might be able to stop it." His words hung in the air, but they felt like a lifeline, a flicker of hope in the midst of their darkest moment. She nodded resolutely, her gaze locking with his. "We'll figure it out. Together." As the door continued to shake, she quickly began searching the suit, feeling along the seams and edges, looking for something, anything that could explain its control over him. She traced her fingers over the glowing symbols etched into the suit's surface, her touch light but purposeful. With each touch, she could feel the energy pulsing beneath the surface, alive, sentient, waiting. And then, her fingers brushed against something, a small, hidden panel near his ribcage. It was unlike anything else on the suit, the texture different, almost metallic, as if it was waiting to be uncovered. She pressed it, and the suit reacted instantly, the hum increasing to an almost unbearable level. The pressure inside him mounted, and he gasped, clutching his chest as the suit seemed to tighten around him. But then something incredible happened. The panel shifted, and the symbols on the suit began to rearrange themselves, revealing a hidden sequence of lights. The energy in the room crackled as if something ancient had been awakened. He looked at her in shock. "What did you do?" She stepped back, her face pale as she realized the gravity of her actions. I think I activated something. I think we've just unlocked the key to controlling it." Just then the door burst open and a figure stepped into the room, a figure cloaked in shadow. Everything in the room froze, and he knew, without a doubt, that their world had just changed forever. The real nightmare was only beginning. Breaking free, a dangerous choice. The door crashed open with a deafening bang, sending the entire room vibrating from the force. The figure standing in the doorway was cloaked in shadows, their silhouette barely visible in the dim light. For a moment, all he could do was stare, his heart hammering in his chest as his body struggled against the suit's ever-tightening grip. The suit pulsed violently, as if sensing the threat and responding to it with equal force. His breath caught in his throat, and he could feel the weight of something terrible drawing closer. This wasn't just a person. This was something far more dangerous. Whatever they were, they had the power to undo everything, to unravel everything he had just uncovered. The figure stepped into the room, slowly and methodically, as though taking their time. The door behind them slammed shut, trapping them all inside. The hum of the suit was deafening now, its energy charging the room like a live wire. The figure didn't speak at first. They simply stood there, watching them, observing the two of them, him and her, frozen in the same moment of realization. "You didn't think you could escape it, did you?" The voice that finally broke the silence was low, cold, and filled with dark amusement. It sent a chill down his spine. The voice was familiar, but he couldn't place it. He tried to speak, but the words got stuck in his throat. Panic rose in his chest like a tidal wave, threatening to swallow him whole. The suit was tightening again, squeezing him, suffocating him. He reached out, struggling to pull the zipper, but it was no use. The suit wasn't just restraining him, it was becoming a part of him, feeding on his fear, on his inability to break free. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice shaking but determined. She stepped in front of him protectively, as if trying to shield him from the figure's cold gaze. "What do you want with him?" The figure stepped forward, their face finally coming into view. He could see the sharp features of a man. Older, his face lined with years of secrets and hidden truths. The light caught his eyes, and they were ice cold, filled with something that made him shudder. The man's lips curled into a smirk as he studied them, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, his gaze lingered on the suit, his eyes narrowing. "You're not just a victim, are you?" the man said slowly, his voice barely a whisper, as though savoring each word. "No, you're part of the experiment, the prototype. You've been chosen." He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words wouldn't come. The suit's grip on him was too strong. His body refused to move, his muscles locked in place as though the suit itself had taken full control. The figure seemed to notice. His struggle and the smirk grew wider. "You've been a part of this from the start," the man continued, his tone mocking. "Did you really think they left you out of the plan? No, you were never meant to escape. You were never meant to be free. This suit, it's not just a tool, it's a key, and you are the lock." The air around them thickened with the weight of his words. The suit hummed louder, its power pulsing through him, tightening its grip on his chest as if it were responding to the man's presence. He tried to fight against it, but the more he resisted, the more intense the pressure became. The man took another step closer, and for the first time the man's face softened. There was something almost regretful in his eyes, a fleeting look, quickly masked by a more sinister expression. "You're more than just a subject. You're something far more valuable. You don't even realize it yet, do you? The suit didn't just bond with you, it's using you. And soon you'll understand just how much control it really has." He tried to scream, to force the suit off, but the words were lost in his throat. The suit had become an extension of him. His thoughts, his pain, his every feeling was now intertwined with its energy. And in that moment he realized that breaking free wasn't just about removing the suit. It was about breaking the bond between his soul and its technology. The suit had become part of his essence, and it wasn't letting go. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but full of defiance. "This has gone far enough. If you think you're going to take him like this..." The man held up his hand, cutting her off. "He's already been taken. Don't you see? It's not about what I want. It's about what he is now. He's already a weapon, a tool of power. And you? Well, you're just the witness." The tension in the room was unbearable. She stood there frozen for a moment, but then a spark of resolve flickered in her eyes. "I won't let you turn him into something he's not. We'll find a way to stop this." The man's laugh was soft but dark, reverberating through the room like an ominous echo. "Oh, it's already too late for that," he said, his voice cold and final. "You don't realize the power you're dealing with. The suit isn't just about containment, it's about evolution. It's evolving, and soon, it will control him completely. And if you don't get out of here now, you'll be part of its evolution too." She stepped forward, placing herself between him and the man. "You're wrong. We can still stop it. We can still fight." He felt her hand on his arm, her touch grounding him, bringing him back to the present. The pain in his chest was unbearable, but her presence gave him a sliver of hope. He looked at her, and in her eyes he saw the same defiance, the same fire that had ignited between them from the beginning. They weren't going to let this man, this monster, win. The man's expression darkened as he took a step back. "You don't understand," he said, his voice suddenly sharp. "This is bigger than you both, bigger than you can comprehend. But it won't matter, because when it's over and the suit has completed its transformation, you'll see, you'll understand." The room seemed to grow colder, darker, as if the shadows were closing in around them. The man turned to leave, his figure melting into the darkness. "Good luck," he said, his voice fading as the door behind him slammed shut. The moment the door clicked shut, the suit on his body pulsed again more violently than before. It wasn't just a response to the man. It was something else. Something had changed inside him. He could feel it deep in his core. The transformation had begun. The air around them felt thick with the weight of what was to come. There was no going back. The man was right about one thing. They were in deeper than they'd ever imagined. He looked at her, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how much time we have left. But we have to stop this. Now." The suit was changing him, and if they didn't act fast, it would change everything around them too. The race against time had begun. Unseen forces. Who's watching us? The air was thick with tension, the room oppressive with the weight of unspoken fear. The moment the door had slammed shut, it felt as though the world outside had disappeared. Every sound, every movement, Every breath felt amplified, distorted by the looming unknown. The suit pulsed against his body, sending a wave of pain through his chest with every beat. The energy within him seemed to grow with each passing second, as if something deep inside was awakening, a force he couldn't control. He looked at her, his eyes wide with dread. "It's happening," he whispered, his voice barely audible yet full of urgency. "The suit. It's changing me. Something's inside it, inside me. It's not just a tool. It's more than that." Her eyes were full of concern, but there was a flicker of determination in them. "We don't have much time. We need to get it off you. Whatever they did to you, we can undo it. We have to." But as she stepped closer, something in the room shifted. The temperature dropped and the hum from the suit grew louder, vibrating in his bones. It wasn't just the suit responding. It was something else, something external. It was as if the very walls of the room were alive, watching, waiting. He could feel it now. Eyes were on them. Invisible eyes, hidden in the shadows, hidden in the very fabric of their reality. He shuddered involuntarily, his muscles locking up as the suit reacted to his fear. "We're not alone," he said, his voice shaking. "They're watching us. Right now." She stepped back, her breath caught in her throat. She felt it too, the suffocating presence closing in around them. Something was out there, something they couldn't see, but it was there, like a looming shadow waiting to pounce. "Who?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Who's watching? Us?" He couldn't answer. He didn't know. But he could feel the presence, the weight of unseen eyes pressing in on them. His mind raced, trying to make sense of everything that had happened, everything that was happening. The suit, the man, the secret experiment, it was all connected. But how, and more importantly, why? Suddenly the lights flickered. Once, twice. The room plunged into darkness for a split second before the emergency lights came on, casting everything in a harsh, unnatural glow. The low hum of the suit escalated to a high-pitched whine vibrating through the walls, the floor, the very air. The sound was deafening, almost unbearable. "They're here," he whispered, the words chilling him to the core. "We need to get out. Now." But before they could move, the floor beneath them groaned as if something was shifting beneath their feet. The walls creaked, the sound like 1,000 whispers in the darkness, a language he couldn't understand. The suit's pulse responded, its vibrations syncing with the rhythm of the strange noises coming from all around them. And then, there was a voice. It wasn't loud, but it was everywhere, inside his head, inside her head, like it was echoing from the very fabric of reality. It was cold and calculating, but strangely familiar. "You are too late," the voice intoned. "This was always meant to happen. You cannot stop it." He recoiled, his hands clutching his head as if trying to block out the words, but they wouldn't stop. The voice continued, relentless, like a whisper just beyond reach, clawing at his mind. "The suit is more than just a prison," the voice said. "It is a beacon, a signal to the forces that control this world. And now, you have activated it. You cannot escape. You will never escape." The force of the voice hit him like a physical blow and he collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. The suit tightened around him, a painful grip on his body, but it wasn't just the suit. It was everything. The air, the walls, the ground. It was all closing in. What is this?" he choked out, his voice barely a whisper. She knelt beside him, her face pale with fear, but she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at something beyond him, something in the shadows, something moving just out of sight. "It's them," she said, her voice barely audible. "They're controlling it. They've been controlling everything from the beginning." The lights flickered again, and this time a shadow passed over them, moving with unnatural speed, like a dark cloud sweeping across the room. They both turned instinctively, but saw nothing. Only darkness. And then there was the sound, footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing in the silence. "They've been watching us this whole time," he whispered, his breath ragged. "They've been manipulating us. This suit, it's a tool. No, it's a weapon. And now, they've activated it. They're using it against us." The shadow shifted again, and this time, they could see a figure standing in the corner of the room, just barely visible in the dim light. It was humanoid, but there was something wrong about it. Something unnatural. Its body seemed to shimmer and blur, like it wasn't entirely solid, like it was a shadow itself, flickering in and out of existence. The figure didn't move. It just watched them. And then, its voice spoke, a cold whisper that chilled them both to the bone. "You've done well," it said, "but now you will pay the price." The suit's vibrations grew more intense, almost unbearable. It was as if the entire room was shaking, the walls trembling with an energy that threatened to tear them apart. The suit reacted violently, jerking and twisting against him, sending waves of excruciating pain through his body. He gasped, clenching his fists as the pain overwhelmed him. "Make it stop," he cried out, but it was no use. The voice from the shadows only grew louder. "You cannot escape," the figure said, its voice hollow, echoing in the room. "This was always meant to be. The suit will transform you, and you will become what you were meant to be, a weapon. And we will control you. Just as we control everything." The world around them seemed to shift, the walls warping, bending in strange angles. The air thickened, and the temperature dropped even further. His body was no longer his own. It felt like the suit had taken over, like it had spread into every fiber of his being, pulling him into its control. He looked at her, fear in his eyes. "We have to get out of here," he said, his voice desperate. "We have to stop them before it's too late." But the figure in the shadows only smiled, a slow, cold smile that sent a shiver down their spines. "It's too late for that," the figure said. "You're already ours." The room darkened once more, the shadows closing in, and the suit's power surged through him with a final, crushing force. The final moment, freedom or doom. The room was bathed in an eerie, unnatural glow, its oppressive atmosphere pulling at every nerve in his body. The shadows that had once lingered in the corners of his vision were now closing in, coalescing into something more tangible, something menacing. The suit on his body pulsed with energy, sending waves of cold, searing pain through him as though the very fabric of his being was being torn apart and remade. He felt like a prisoner in his own skin, every cell in his body screaming for release. But the suit, whatever dark force it had become, refused to let him go. The suffocating grip it held over him only grew tighter, its power surging with each passing second. His breath came in shallow gasps, his chest constricting with the unbearable weight of its hold. She was beside him, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. But she had not given up. Not once. She had remained by his side, her resolve as unyielding as the shadows that stalked them. Her hand was on his arm, her touch grounding him in the chaos around them. "We're running out of time," she said, her voice low but fierce, almost as if she were trying to convince herself as much as him. "We can't let them win." He closed his eyes, struggling against the pain, against the suit's suffocating hold. The voice from the shadows still echoed in his mind, relentless, telling him over and over that they were too late, that the transformation had already begun. The suit wasn't just a prison, it was a catalyst, a doorway to something far darker than he could have ever imagined. "I can feel it," he muttered through clenched teeth, his voice strained. "It's taking me, changing me. I'm not in control anymore. I can't stop it." Her fingers tightened around his arm, her eyes searching his face as if trying to find the person he once was beneath the layers of pain and fear. "We can't give up. We won't. We have to fight back. We have to take control." He nodded weakly, but deep down he knew the battle was far from over. The suit had already begun its work. It was rewriting him, turning him into something that wasn't entirely human. But there was something in her eyes, something that gave him the courage to keep fighting, even when every part of him screamed to surrender. She wasn't giving up, not on him, and not on themselves. The shadows in the room began to shift again, coiling around them like a tightening noose. The figure, the one who had orchestrated all of this, stood silently in the far corner, watching them with cold, calculating eyes. Its voice spoke again, its words laced with quiet triumph. "You are too weak," it said. "The transformation is inevitable. There is no escaping what you are becoming. You are already ours. All that remains is for you to accept it." His body jerked again, a violent spasm that left him gasping for air. The suit responded with a surge of power, tightening like a vice around his chest. The energy coursing through him was nearly unbearable, as though his very soul was being stretched to its breaking point. But through the pain, he heard her voice again, steady, unwavering, full of fire. "No," she said, her voice cutting through, the noise like a beacon of hope. "We are not theirs. You are not theirs. We still have a choice. We still have a chance." He looked at her, his vision blurry, but her words reached him, deep into his heart, where the remnants of his willpower still lay. He could feel the weight of the suit trying to consume him, trying to erase everything he was. But in that moment, something inside him snapped. He wasn't just going to lie down and let this happen. Not now. Not when everything was on the line. With a primal roar, he forced himself to push against the pain, against the crushing weight of the suit. Every fiber of his being screamed as he tried to break free, his hands clawing at the suit, his body writhing against the forces trying to control him. The suit pulsed harder, sending shockwaves of agony through him. But he refused to stop, and then he felt it. A flicker of resistance, a crack in the armor. He focused all his energy on that crack, that small, fragile opening in the suit's hold. The pain was excruciating, but it was nothing compared to the terror of losing himself, completely. He wasn't just fighting for his life now, he was fighting for his humanity. The suit flickered, the lights inside it flashing erratically as if it were fighting against him. The more he pushed, the more the suit resisted, its power struggling to overtake his will, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. "Hold on," she whispered, her voice full of quiet determination. "Don't stop, we're almost there." The words burned through him, a fire of resolve igniting in his chest. With one final, desperate push, he wrenched his arms free, the suit's grip giving way just enough for him to break through. The suit screeched in protest, the lights inside it flashing wildly as it tried to reassert control. But it was too late. The transformation was undone. He collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, his body trembling from the effort. The pain still lingered, but it was fading. The suit, once a prison, now felt like nothing more than a tattered shell clinging to him. And then he heard it. The soft, unrelenting hum that had filled the room was gone. The presence in the shadows, the one that had been watching, waiting, was gone too. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with exhaustion and relief. "We did it," he whispered, barely able to believe the words. "We're free." She knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "We're not done yet," she said, her voice steady. "But we've won the first battle. And that's all that matters right now." He nodded, his head swimming with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. They had done it. They had broken free. But the war wasn't over. They had no idea what consequences their actions would have, what forces had been set in motion. But for the first time in what felt like forever, he could breathe. And whatever came next, he knew they would face it together. The suit was no longer a cage. It was a symbol of their strength, their defiance, and their will to fight back. They were free for now.